Hello, this is Tom for Tabletop Tap Room. This week we're doing another list of top 10 magic items from AD&D to inflict upon your low-level player characters. And I say inflict with malice aforethought because we're talking about the top 10 cursed items to use on a low-level party. But before we get too deeply in it, let me just say thanks for watching the video. Thanks to my subscribers. You guys are great. And don't forget that like, subscribe, and bell icon to help me build the channel. Now, I had some criteria for this list. We didn't want any instant death. You just rolled up a character and you get your first magic item and it turns out it's cursed and it's an instant death item. There are a few of those, like the dust of choking, sneezing and choking. It's a saving throw or die. And we didn't think that that was something worth doing to the low-level party. We do, we don't want to scare any new players, like, you get a magic item and it kills you. So we didn't want any instant death items, and we didn't want anything that was going to require some high-level spell casting, like a level 9 cleric or a level 9 wizard or magic user to be able to remedy the problem of the cursed item. I didn't want things that were like -1 cursed sword or -1 cursed armor or -1, cursed shield, that you're kind of stuck with it till you can get the remove curse spell by a high-level spellcaster. And let's face it, -1 cursed sword is boring. It's like ho-hum. So we didn't want any of that. We wanted interesting cursed items. So we combed through the DMG and we looked for 10 items that would be things that you could introduce, because I am a great believer in what I've dubbed the Gygaxian model of magic item distribution, meaning that 10% of all the magic items you hand out should be cursed items, just to keep the characters on their toes. Now, I have a few honorable mentions. The first one is the Scroll of Protection magic used by an enemy. So when the players show up and one of the enemy uses the Scroll of Protection against them, so it might be protection from good aligned or just protection from adventurers, for all that. Now, it's not an actual standard item, but you just kind of gonna roll with it. And, to me, it's a fun introduction of items being a problem for the player characters that, the orc shaman just used this protection scroll and it's now giving everybody in the party a -1 to hit. I think that's a great option. The other was a crystal ball used by the opposition, and the PCs notice that the scrying is happening. Because when you read the crystal ball's description, there's a chance that people will notice that they're being scryed upon with a crystal ball or whatever means of scrying is being used. So I thought, and nobody likes being watched. Big Brother is watching you. Big Wizard is watching you. And nobody likes that. So I thought that could be a fun thing to introduce to a game, to just mess with the players a little bit, mess with their minds. They're being watched. And so then you have to create a story of who's watching them. What are their, what is their end goal? What is it that they're after? So that ends up just adding more fun and adventure to the game, I think. Now, my list, I'm going to do these as a top 10 countdown. They're not really necessarily in any particular order. But number 10 is the Incense of Obsession. It is a screw with the cleric item. That's why I actually chose it for number 10. But in the end, I was like, I don't know that I can really put these items into the number 1 item type of thing. So, but number 10 is the Incense of Obsession. And it's basically a screw with the cleric. They think they are just totally obsessed with their spellcasting ability. They will use their spells until they're all used up. anytime, particularly when the spell is not needed. So you have to be a little bit creative, and you have to work with the player a little bit. But in the end, because you would find several little blocks of incense, you're going to have multiple doses of this incense to use. So the players will, and they might actually find an opportunity to use it against an enemy at some point in the future. And so that's an interesting, cursed item, and they don't have to light it. They're not forced to light it, but they can light it. So it might be that the magic user in the party wants to mess with the cleric, because the cleric got the staff that the magic user wanted in the magic item lottery that they held. And so there you go. Incense of Obsession, but it definitely is a screw with cleric item. Number 9 and 8 are items of delusion, namely the Potion of Delusion and the Ring of Delusion, where the person who has it absolutely believes that if I drink this potion, I can fly. Or if I wear this ring, I can breathe underwater. And they absolutely believe it. They are totally deluded. Now, the interesting thing is that the Potion of Delusion is a single-use item, obviously, and the Ring of Delusion does not require any special thing to get rid of it. You can take it off anytime you want. The problem being is that the character absolutely believes that it does what it does, and you almost have a situation where the other player characters are going to be trying to convince this character that the ring is bad mojo, and it's almost like that Gandalf with Bilbo trying to get Bilbo to leave the ring behind, and it's that whole scene. And so you can actually end up with some interesting role play, particularly if the player plays along with it. You can actually, I think this could be a lot of fun, the Ring of Delusion, at any rate. Number 7 is the Filter, if I'm pronouncing it right, Filter of Love. The Filter of Love, basically when you drink it, it's like a charm person spell got cast, and you will be totally enamored and charmed with the next person you see, particularly if they are the same species as you, and maybe originally AD&D wrote, if they were the opposite sex. Obviously, if the character had a certain orientation, whatever. But this is kind of a screw with the play. It's not a permanent problem, because more than likely what is going to happen is that the player character will have drunk the Filter of Love, thinking it's a potion of healing, or it's a potion of gaseous form, or potion of strength, and they're going to fall in love with one of the other party members. So it's not an end of the world type of situation with a cursed item, but it is a problem, and it does require a dispel magic to get rid of the charm effect. So that is one of the few. And dispel magic's not that high of a spell, and you can actually salt the treasure hoard somewhere in the dungeon with a spell scroll with dispel magic on it if you wanted to be nice. But who wants to be nice? Go ahead and be the not so nice dungeon master. Now, the next up is the Amulet of Inescapable Location. The wearer believes that it totally protects them from scrying, from crystal balls, or detection by ESP or telepathy. And so this is kind of a ticking time bomb that they're not going to realize that it's a cursed item, that it's causing a problem for them. And it may not cause a problem for a while, unless, of course, you're doing that. You're being scryed upon by the crystal ball, but you don't know who's doing it, type of thing. So if you're doing that sort of thing, and you have a lot of this going on in the campaign, then it'll come back to be a problem fairly quickly. Or even you could have the wizard that was hiring them get really angry. How dare you bring this amulet into my presence? I have enemies who are, could be listening in right now, and so it's the kind of a ticking time bomb that would just go unnoticed. The players are just not going to notice that they're carrying around this cursed item, that it's doing bad mojo on them. The number 5 is the Bag of Transmuting. I love this thing. This is one of my favorites. I probably should have made it number 1, but again, we're not doing a traditional top 10 list where number 1 is the penultimate item. But the Bag of Transmuting, the players think it's a bag of holding, and it will act like a bag of holding for a few uses, but then one night it turns everything into wood. Everything inside it's turned into wood or into glass or into some useless metal. So you've loaded it with all this gold, and then when you go to empty it, they're wood coins. I just think that's absolutely great. Now, however, the players could still take advantage of this. They could be like, hey, we have we get things made out of clay and we turn them into wood, and then we're selling that wood because it's an interesting wooden object now. So maybe that they might find a way to go ahead and use the property, the transmuting property. It could also be that you make it a random transmutation. One time it's glass, another time it's wood, another time it's lead, another time it's something else. It could be, turns everything into horse feces or something along those, something just kind of, so Bag of Transmuting, I think it's absolutely fabulous for a cursed item. Number 4 is the Broom of Animated Attack. What's more fun than a broom? You think it's a broom of flying, but it dumps you on your head from 6 to 9 feet in the air and then starts beating you. It's, as cursed items go, you're going to have to fight it. And it's only got about like 18 hit points, I think. So it's not an end of the world curse, and it's something that resolves itself fairly quickly. Next up is the Chime of Hunger. Now, the description specifies you should have it operate as a chime of opening a few times. But then, dun, 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 here we go with this Chime of Hunger, and everything within a certain range must tear into its rations. And one of the interesting things in the description is that whatever you're holding, you drop. So, could be a torch. Torches go out. You're now in the dark. The characters are now in the dark, ripping into their rations, ravenously hungry. And they've dropped their sword. You could have some interesting effects with that. They've dropped the lantern and it broke or it spilled or whatever. But I find that to be an interesting specification in the description, that whatever you're holding, you will drop just to tear into your rations. And or if you don't have anything to eat, you will go to the location that the chime was rung and attack whatever's there and attempt to eat them. That's more of having the monsters in the locale come and attack the player characters who are busy stuffing their face with food and have dropped their torches, have dropped their swords, dropped their shields, and are stuffing their faces with food. And now here shows up an orc patrol, and they're ravenously hungry too, but they're going to attack you to eat you. So you would almost, based off of the description, you'd almost have to manage to get that saving throw so you could stop tearing into food to be able to fight. So this could be a huge complication for the player characters. Number 2, Flask of Curses. Great name for a cursed item. You don't tell the players that it's the Flask of Curses. It could have liquid inside. It could have smoke inside. I would make it such that if there's smoke inside and you've opened it, you can't get the stopper back on. That would be inherent in the magic, that you can't shove that stopper back in there to prevent the smoke from coming out. It's coming out like a flood. So if it was liquid, the players would think, oh, it's just a potion of strength or a potion of whatever. So, when they go to drink it, then the curse happens. Now, the curse for this item can be anything from the reverse of the cleric's spell bless, which I believe is, it's not it's not the end of the world, or it could be that a monster just shows up and attacks everyone. That could be the curse. So you have a wide possibility of what you could inflict as a curse. It's not meant to be an end of the world thing. That's, definitely not a save or die. If you got to fight a monster, you have a fighting chance, presumably. So I like the Flasks of curses because it's just interesting and it can be so variable. You could actually use it multiple times and the players are not going to realize you're using the same cursed item multiple times. It's because you're having variable effects with it. And then last but not least, number one is the Mirror of Opposition. Like the Broom of Flying, you're going to have to fight. And what happens, though, is whoever looks into the Mirror of Opposition, a duplicate of them appears and attacks them. This duplicate is exactly like the person who looked in the mirror. In all capability, if they have spells, this duplicate has spells. If you have magic items, the duplicate has the same magic items. The minute the player character dies, though, or the duplicate dies, the duplicate and all its items completely just disappears, just vanishes. So there's no like, oh, hey, we're going to get another, elvish cloak and boots, because, it's not going to work that way. Now, the other interesting thing here is like that episode of Star Trek when the transporter made a duplicate of Kirk. But so you had the two Kirks. One was meek and mild, and the other was aggressive and nasty. You've got two people fighting. The other player characters are not necessarily going to know who their buddy is and who the duplicate is. So that could come into play in this combat, so that it could have a lot of interesting consequences. Top of that, if multiple people look in the mirror, then it's multiple duplicates and problems. But also, this is an item that you save. You wrap it up, you don't use it, but at some point you might just go to the ogre that you're talking to. You manage to get the ogre to talk to you, and you go, hey, here, we have something for you, and you carefully pull the mirror out and put it in his face. This could be something the players might aspire to use at some point during the game and use it creatively. And I think that's absolutely a cool thing to have happen as well. So this is Tom for Tabletop Tap Room. That is my top 10 list of cursed magic items to inflict upon low-level parties. And if you agree with me, or even if you don't agree, maybe I overlooked an item that you think is just a really great cursed item. Go ahead and put a comment in the show notes and in the comments below. And thanks for checking out the video. And don't forget to keep on gaming.